Go.
All right. Well, this morning I woke up thinking about my grandfather, great-grandfather, Joseph Harrison. I remember some stories that my grandma Myrtle told. And one of the stories was he went to Dawson City in the Yukon, and he was a miner, and he went with his friend Carl Dwyer, which his nickname was Pinky. Anyway, they took the old steamer up to Skagway, and I don't know if they went by the river to get to Dawson or whether they went up over Chillicoot Pass. I'm not clear on that. But anyway, they made it to Dawson, and they got a permit from the Canadian government to do mining. And it wasn't a mine that you walked into. It was a mine that went down into the ground. And they mined that for, I don't know, I'm assuming a year. And they did really well with it. And then one day the mine caved in, so they decided to come back to Sumter or Baker. I'm not sure where they lived at that time. But I was told that Grandma Harrison's wedding ring was made from some of the gold that they mined in Dawson. And one time, when Dad and I was in Dawson, I checked in to see if I could go to the mine where his claim was. But I would have had to hike in, and the mounted police said that they would have to let the miners along the way know that I was coming because they shoot at you. So needless to say, I didn't go to the mine, but I was real curious about it. When he got back from Dawson, he must have been in Sumter because the Harrisons lived in Sumter. And that's when he met Grandma Harrison. And then they married. They lived in Whitney, and Grandma's sisters and brothers, they all went to school at Whitney. They rode their horses and to school every day. And I don't know what the name of the little ranch was that they had, but it was a little ranch out of Whitney there. But as he got older, he drove stagecoach between Baker and Whitney. And he also, I was told he was a sheriff. Now, I haven't looked up those records, so I don't know. I don't know if that's fact or not, but I was, Grandma Myrtle told a story of when she was a girl. They were living in the stagecoach house at Whitney. And and Grandpa built a honeymoon cabin, which is still there at Whitney, and the old stagecoach house is still there. But there was a cattle drive that came through, and one of the local girls accused one of the men that drove cattle, said that he had raped her, and anyway, so Dad said it was her brothers that hung him, but anyway, he got hung. And Grandma said that her dad told him to go into the house with all of the uproar going on. And Grandma said, of course, she didn't mind. And they had taken the fella down and put him in the back of the buckboard. And Grandma said she snuck out of the house and she peeked up over the buckboard, and she said he was laying in the back. And she said a bunch of her friends, the kids in Whitney, said that they had a private burial for him. Not him, but her doll. They decided to bury her doll. And so she said they dug a hole and they put the doll in it and covered her up. And she said they marched around the graves singing, "You poor old soul, you poor old soul." And I thought, that just struck me funny, because who would have thought that kids would even think to do that? So, but I guess they made their own entertainment. So anyway, that was one story that was told. And it seemed like there was one other story I was going to tell you. I do know that Grandpa Harrison passed away in 1948 or 1949, because I was born in 1948 and he passed away shortly after I was born, but I don't know what of. Oh, I know the other story. The Harrisons came to Oregon on the railroad, and Grandpa Harrison was a young man, and he got a job with stringing telegraph wire, because the telegraph ran along by the train tracks. And anyway, his family took the train out to Oregon, and Grandpa Joe worked his way out. And the Mormon trail that the wagon trains came out on ran right along the railroad tracks. And so at nighttime, instead of eating with the crew on the railroad, he would go over and have dinner with the Mormons. And so he had the name of Mormon Joe. They started calling him Mormon Joe. And I thought that was kind of a cute story about him. And then when Grandma and him got married, they had 3 girls and 1 boy. Mabel passed away of typhoid, I think, from drinking. She got some bad water out of the stream or something. And then there was Olive, and she married a Moran who worked for the Forest Service. And then Grandma married Lou Blythe. And Bunny never married until he was retired from the high school in Brookings. But Bunny was named after Grandpa Joe's best friend. And so that's how he got his name, Carl Dwyer. That was Bunny's best friend's that he mined with in Dawson's name. And he went by the nickname of Pinky. So I think that was the other story I wanted to tell. Anyway, I woke up thinking about those stories this morning, and I wanted to get them off my mind before I forgot again. Okay, so we moved from Arizona to Lakeside. And I told you that Grandma Myrtle sent us money to get back to Lakeside. We lived with Grandma Myrtle. and she had a 2-bedroom home that Uncle Bud built for her. And so when we got there, Merle and Bud and Charlene and Terry was already living with Grandma, and then us 4 moved in, so it was a full house. Charlene and Terry, we shared twin beds with them, and Grandma and Grandpa had their own room, and Mom and Dad and Merle and Bud slept out in the living room. So it was a full house. Uncle Bud was my mother's brother, and Aunt Merle was my dad's sister, and that's how Charlene and Terry and Judy and I became double cousins. We had a lot of fun living there. Aunt Merle and Uncle Bud, all of them, was always pulling pranks on each other. I remember Bud and Merle was building a house in back of Grandma's, and they had it all framed in, and Dad and Uncle Bud finished off the garage so that we could live in the garage, and they had it all fixed up. We had a barrel out to catch rainwater. We had an outhouse. We did sleep. It was one large room. We didn't have bedrooms. It was just one large room for Mom and Dad and us 2 girls to sleep in. And then we had a small living room and a kitchen that we could cook. We were comfortable. I remember one time Mom was out hanging laundry on the clothesline, and these 2 fellas come walking up the trail, and Mom said they were Mormon fellas, and she didn't want to talk to them, so she ran down the trail, and she was hollering, "Eek Mom a man! Eek Mom a man!" It's like she was a hillbilly. I don't think the fellows came down the trail after that. I thought that was hilarious. Mom did some of the funniest stuff. When she was little, and she would come home from the hospital, and Uncle Bud told this story because he hated it when she came home. Anyway, she was really spoiled because she was in the hospital, and so she always got her way when she came home. But she did do the housework and fix dinner and stuff. And Uncle Buck said she'd lay on the couch and because she had to prop her leg up, and she would say, "Get me some tea, my slave." And they'd get in trouble if they didn't wait on her. So anyway, Buck said he'd go get her a cup of tea or whatever it was she wanted and bring it back, and she'd say, "Thank you, my slave." And Buck said he hated to be called a slave. One time she fixed dinner, and Grandma worked at the local tavern. Years ago they had neighborhood taverns and neighborhood stores. And anyway, she went down to the tavern to tell Grandma that dinner was ready. And boy, Mom would really get mean if Grandma didn't get up off the stool and come right down and have dinner because she had fixed it. And Mom had an old dog called Rags, and the guy at the tavern, any leftover beer in the glasses, he would pour in this big pan. And every night her dog would go to the bar and drink his pan of beer and then come home. I thought that was funny too. Oh. So anyway, we, let me go back here and see where I am at. I'm getting sidetracked. I remember we were still living with Grandma. This was before we moved back into the garage, and it was Easter. And Aunt Merle and Mom made up 4 Easter baskets with the cellophane and the pretty ribbons, and us girls was all dressed up for Easter, and Aunt Merle got in the car and she drove down the road and parked the car and came back with the baskets, and she would run around to the back door and knock on the door. And of course us girls would be so excited, and we would run to the back door to see who got the Easter basket. And then Aunt Merle would go run to the front door and knock on the front door and leave an Easter basket. She did that 4 times. And then she went back to get the car. When she got back, she said she was really tired from having to run around the house. And but I always remember that because us girls were so excited, and Aunt Merle was just pooped. And then Mom and Aunt Merle decided they were going to build us a doll or a playhouse with some leftover lumber that we had left over from the garage. And they got the floor all made. And then they couldn't find their tools, and then they got one wall up and braced, and a big wind came and blew the wall over, and then they couldn't find their tools again. Well, all of their tools that they had out got nailed down when they did the floor. So Dad and Uncle Bud tore the playhouse apart and found all the tools that got nailed under the floorboards. So, and let's see. Grandma had a dog named Muggins, and she was I think she was a part pit bull. Anyway, and Grandpa Roy, he liked to drink, and Grandma, I mean, if she gave him $1 to go down to get a newspaper, you wouldn't see him for a week, because he'd go get a bottle of wine and drink his wine. And anyway, when he would come home, he would hide his wine bottles in the rhododendron bushes. And us girls used to like to tell Muggins, go find Grandpa's wine bottles. And she'd go and she would look in all the places that he'd normally put them. And she'd come rolling them out of the bushes with her nose. He used to get so mad. Because Grandma would get the wine bottle and pour the wine down the sink. And Roy liked to tease my sister Judy. He'd come over and borrow our push mower to mow Grandma's yard. And one day he came over and borrowed it, and he painted the lawnmower green. Anything that was painted green was his. And so Judy was Dad told her to go over and get the lawnmower, so she went over to get it. Well, he had painted it green, and he told her, he says, no, that's my lawnmower. Don't you see it's green? Oh, she was so mad because he painted it green and it was Dad's. I remember Bud and Dad coming home from work, and we were still living at Grandma's, and Aunt Myrtle and Mom had their hair in curlers, and they were painting their fingernails, and they were getting all ready to go to the big dance that night. And Dad came in, and he was tired, and he didn't want to go to the dance, so he picked up a water pitcher that was sitting on the table and poured it over Aunt Myrtle's head. And boy, was the fight on. They had water hoses out, and anyway, they didn't go to the dance that night because all of their hard work of getting their hair done and stuff was ruined with water fights. Of course, us kids had to get in on it too, you know. When we first got to Lakeside, Uncle Bud got Dad a job down at the mill. And Dad's first job at the mill was working on the log pond. And every day at noon, he'd have to come home and change clothes because he kept falling off of the logs and into the pond. And Mom and I and Judy we would just bust out laughing when he'd come in all wet. It took him about a week or a little longer to figure out, I don't know, maybe he didn't have cork boots at that time or something, and cork boots are the boots that they had spikes in them so you could walk the logs, and so I don't know if when he first started he couldn't afford a pair of cork boots or what, but anyway, that was one of our big laughs that we had on Dad. After Dad worked at the mill for a while, he had saved enough money to rent an apartment across the street from Grandma's. And I can't remember what Lizzie's last name was, but she was a lady from Finland. And her and her husband had bought these duplexes, and they were a small 2-bedroom duplex. And so we lived in the duplexes until we got enough money to buy some property so we could build a house. And we bought the lot right next door to the duplexes, and we bought it from George Bickle. You've heard me talk about Ruth, I think, which was his daughter that I went to school with.
This was in Lakeside.
Yeah, this is at Lakeside. And I can remember him when he bought the lot. Then we had to clear it because it had trees and stuff on it. And I remember dragging branches over to put on a great big pile to burn. And both Judy and I worked to help him clear that lot. And then Mom and Uncle Bud, they started drawing up house plans of what kind of house they wanted. And I don't know. Dad bought all of his lumber and stuff from the city of North Bend. There was a bunch of old buildings downtown North Bend that they were tearing down, and the lumber was still good. So Dad bought the lumber, and that's what we started building with. Dad tried to pay cash as he built, so he didn't have a large house payment. He was hoping it would be paid off by the time he got it built, but I think that he ended up having to get a loan to finish it. I went to the Lakeside school from the 4th grade to the 6th grade. And then we were bused into North Bend from the 7th to the 9th for junior high, and then the 10th through the 12th for high school. And it took us about, I don't know, at about 45 minutes to get from Lakeside to school in North Bend, because we had to go through Hauser and pick up all the kids at Hauser and Sunny Hill, before we got to school. So the bus would pick us up like at 7 o'clock in the morning and bring us home up by 4 by the time they dropped everybody off. So it made for a really long day. I didn't mind junior high until I met a couple of people that were bullies. I have a couple of stories I was going to tell you, and I probably told you before, but I was in PE class, and there was a couple of girls that always picked on me, and they would take my clothes, and we had these lockers with baskets in them, and you had to put your clothes in the basket and then put it in this like a little shelf, and then put a padlock on it. But nobody ever used a padlock, and so these two girls used to take my clothes and throw them way up on top. And so I'd have to climb up on top to get my clothes, and I got tired of it one day. I'd had it, and I took their clothes and I threw them in the shower. And those two girls grabbed me and threw me out in the hallway that went to the boys' locker, of course. And I tried to open the door to get back in, and they were holding the door. About that time, Mr. Hudson come around the corner. And Mr. Hudson was a teacher that taught at Lakeside for years. And he was the boys' coach, I think. But anyway, he came around the corner, and here I am out in the hallway, stark naked, trying to hide myself and pull the door open. And he grabbed that door and pulled it open, and those girls went screeching into the PE room. And he didn't care. He marched right through the PE room to the coach's desk and asked him what in the hell was going on. She had no control over her students, and anyway, those girls got in really big trouble. And I never had to climb up on my baskets to get my clothes any longer. So and the only other incident that I remember, there was a fella that used to run down the hallways and flip the girls on the hind end. And when you wear girdles and nylons, it would leave a welt. And he would do that almost every day. And I told him one time, I said, I'm going to get even with you. Well, one day I was walking down the hall, and he was at his locker, and he had his hands full of books. And I went up, and I tapped him on the shoulder, and he turned around, and I just doubled up my fist and hit him right in the nose. And went on to my class, and then I got I gave him a bloody nose. He had to go to the nurse's office. So I get to my next class, and over the intercom, Mr. Bordner, our principal, was saying, "Myrtle Turtle, will you come to the office?" And I just bristled up. I wasn't going to take any more. So I bristled up and I marched myself down to the office. And when I walked into his office, I said, "I don't care if you call my dad. He's been hitting me on the behind." And I said, "And I've had it." And I said, "So just go ahead and call my dad. I don't care." Mr. Bordner, I think it took everything for him not to laugh, because he didn't call Dad, but he did have a talk with that fella, and I didn't get in trouble for hitting him in the nose. So I just got to the point I was not going to take any more crap off of anybody. So anyway, but I did like Mr. Bordner. He was a good guy. As time went on, my friend Bobbie Davidson, her dad bought her a little Fiat, and they had suicide doors where they opened out opposite of what the normal car door would open. And so Bobbie's going to take me for a ride in her car, and so we get in, and we're going to go to Winchester Bay. So we drive into Winchester Bay, and we may have went into Reedsport too. I don't really remember. But anyway, when we went to come back up Winchester Bay Hill, it wouldn't make it up the hill. And there weren't any cars coming, so Bobbie turned around and went back down the hill, and we ended up having to go through Winchester Bay and along the beach up to Marie Lake to get back up on top of the hill. There wasn't enough power. Bobbie and I have laughed. It was funny at the time. We laughed about that. It may not be too funny to tell, but anyway, that was one of our little outings. Well, Bobbie and I used to, I think I already mentioned about us riding our bicycles on 101 to go to Marie Lake to spend the day swimming and walking around the lake, and we'd pack a lunch, and so I did a lot with Bobbie. Yeah, we just had a lot of fun. One of the things that I liked to go over to Bobbie's when Bobbie's dad and the band was playing. They had a country western band, and he sang like George Jones. That was his favorite singer, was George Jones. And so he was going to let us sing background for him. So Bobbie and I, we thought we were really, really, good about singing background. So he got a job playing for the community center in North Bend, and we were going to sing background, and I was all excited, and so I thought that was my one and only time singing in any band. But I did like to sing, and I did like to dance. So anyway, what else we got? I had another friend, Janice, and her folks owned a ranch up 10 Mile Lake. And I would go up and stay the night, and during haying season, we got to drive the tractor and bring the cows in and drive the hay truck. And well, I was just in junior high when we were driving the hay truck. And we would drive the hay truck down to Janice's folks' barn, And they would load the truck full of hay, and then we'd drive it up to Grandpa's barn, and the fellows would unload it. Well, this one load, it was Janice's turn to drive, and so she was driving, and she noticed there was a loose bale of hay on top of the load, so she stopped and she goes, "Myrtle, I need to have you crawl up on top of the load, lay on your back, and hang on to that bale of hay so it doesn't fall off." So I'm laying on the bales of hay that was tied down, but this one bale, I don't know why it was loose, but anyway, so I'm laying there watching the trees, the tree limbs go by, and I'm hanging on to this bale. And all of a sudden, I spotted a bee's nest hanging down on this limb, and she was going to go right under it because she didn't know it was there. Man, I sucked my stomach in as far as it would go, turned my head, and I think I missed it like about this much, and I didn't get any stings. That was one of my adventures up there. And then her brother Larry bought a new car, and us girls begged him to let us drive it. So we could drive pretty much anywhere on the ranch, but he told us we could only drive it from Grandma's house to Janice's folks, and then back again. So we're driving back and forth, and Janice was driving, thank goodness it wasn't me, but a skunk ran out in front of us, and Janice hit that skunk, and stink. Larry had a date that night, and his car stunk so bad he had to take his folks' car. He was so mad at us girls for hitting a skunk, but we didn't mean to. It just ran out in front of us. Oh, what else have I got down here? Oh, yeah. We moved into our house. I think I was like 6th or 7th grade, something like that, when we got our house built. And Dad was getting ready to put the yard in, get everything rototilled into that sandy soil, and he wanted to get some manure, cow manure. So I asked Grandpa Johnson, I said, can we, or not Johnson, Benson, can we come up and get a load of cow manure to work into the lawn, And he said, sure, just come on up. But he said, the field it's in, there's a big bull, and you guys keep an eye on that bull because he'll charge you. So I go home and I tell Dad, yeah, we can go get cow manure this weekend, but we have to watch out for the bull. And I'm telling Dad as we're driving up the road. Dad said, oh, that bull's not going to bother us. And I never thought any more about it, so we're up, we have our shovels, and we're shoveling manure into the back. And I was keeping my eye on that bull, because Grandpa said to keep an eye on it. And all of a sudden, that bull charged, and Dad ended up in the back of the pickup in the middle of the maneuver. And I headed for the cab of the truck. And I'm laughing. I just burst out laughing. And I said, see, he said that bull would charge. And then he hung around. It was like he didn't just walk away. He just stood there and looked, stared at us. And anyway, Dad was so mad by the time that bull left. he was all stinky and dirty, and anyway, I'll never forget that. That was so hilarious. Oh, yeah. Aunt Merle liked to go to auctions, and she would buy boxes. It was like a storage unit, you know, and people couldn't pay for their storage, and so they would auction off these boxes. You never knew what was in them, and anyway, Aunt Merle, she bidded on this box, and inside was an accordion, and she loved that thing. She would play, you know, try to play it when she was at the house and stuff. Well, Dad always went to bed early, like 7:30, 8 o'clock, because he had to get up early and go to work. So Aunt Merle decided, okay, so she organized us girls to go serenade Dad while she played the accordion. So we all went over to Lizzie's, where we rented the duplex. And we're standing under Dad's bedroom window, and Aunt Merle's playing the accordion. And I don't even remember what song she wanted us to sing. And he got mad. He raised the window and he said, "Jesus Christ, would you guys go home so I can get some sleep?" But I'll never forget that. Aunt Merle just thought that was so funny that she could still get his goat. No. But his sisters were he always played pranks on his sisters. Grandma Pierce said one time he irritated the girls so bad they got a hold of him and they threw him on the bed and held him down, and they tied his thumbs to the bedpost and his toes to the bottom of the bed and left him there. Grandma said she came in the house for some reason, and she went in there, and by the time she found Dad, his thumbs were purple and his toes were purple. It's a wonder he didn't lose them, because they tied him pretty tight. And then I remember another time we were all out camping, and Aunt Merle had to go potty, and so she was headed up the hill to find a bush to go potty. And Dad, he had a camera, and he was trying to sneak up on her and take a picture. Well, it made him mad. He made Aunt Merle mad, and so Dora and Imogene and Merle got a hold of him and went and threw him in the lake. So that's how Dad, he was always causing trouble, and then the girls would take care of it. I don't think John ever got in on any of that. I don't remember Uncle John, Dad's brother, ever really camping with us. It was usually just Billy's family, you know, the Slimps, and yeah. Anyway, I remember Dad always made us go to bed early because he had to go to bed, and I remember one night I used to get mad at my sister because she would, if the boys come around to the bedroom window, I could open the window and would whisper, you know, because Dad and them were right next. Their window was right there. And I remember, and Judy would say, "Dad, Mama's, or Myrtle's talking to the boys." And I remember Ron Murphy and Bobbie Baker came around, and they were yakking at me through the window or something, and Dad hollered, "You goddamn boys, get home." Well, Mom had left the clothesline down. And Bobbie Baker, Ronnie was short, but Bobbie was tall, and he hung himself on the clothesline. He had a great big red mark the next day where he ran into the clothesline. Oh, anyway, it's funny what you remember. So, then one time we were out playing hide and seek, and we were down at Ronnie Murphy's house. And Don Myrtle, he was a kid I went to school with and who I walked with at graduation. Anyway, Don decided to crawl up on the chicken house to hide. And everybody was looking for him. Well, pretty soon he slid off of the chicken house and straddled a sawhorse. Oh, that he hurt so bad, but of course us girls, we couldn't, just to see him sliding off and landing on that sawhorse, we just cracked up. And Don was in so much pain, but that's just our family. Aunt Jean came over, they came over to visit one time, and she stepped wrong off of the front step and broke her ankle. And everybody was in hysterics. We just laughed, even though she had to go to the doctor. So that's where I get that. So if you ever get hurt and I bust out laughing, it's not meant because you're in pain. I think it's nervous energy. I remember as I got older, let's see, I think I was a sophomore in high school. And Katherine, my mom's friend, she had a little bug, and she would take me driving because mom didn't have a driver's license or drove at that time. So anyway, Katherine would take me driving and teach me how to parallel park, and Dad took me driving too, but anyway, I went to Reedsport to get my driver's license, and I passed the first time, but I'm not sure what I was, after I got my driver's license, Dad was so happy that somebody else had a driver's license beside him. And so he would want me to go pay bills and do, if he'd let me take the car to school, and then I'd go and pay bills and stuff afterwards, after school. Well, I didn't. He let me take the car and go to the show, or I think it was the show. I think Bobbie and I went to the show or something. Anyway, I didn't get home when I was supposed to. And so he grounded me. And so he said, he was sitting at the breakfast table and I was getting ready for school, and he said, I want you to go in and pay bills today. And I said, I can't, I'm grounded. And he looked at me like, oh, yeah, it's like he forgot I was grounded, I said, I'm sorry, I'm grounded, I can't do that. And he would get this little shitty ass grin on his face, and he'd say, damn kids. But I remember shutting my bedroom door a little bit too loud. Actually, I slammed the door. I was mad at him. And he comes stomping down to my bedroom, and he said, I want you to walk up and down that hallway, and I want you to close that door, and I don't even want to hear it click. I don't know how many times I walked up and down that hallway before he couldn't hear that door click. He did the same thing with Judy one time too. But anyway, it was either that or he never ever took the door off of the hinges, but that probably would have been his next step if I would have got too mouthy. Which I didn't think I was that mouthy, but...
Yeah, probably were.
Oh. Okay, what else we got here? Well, I went to, I met Al my sophomore year. He graduated high school in 1963. And I think I was either at the football game with Janice or Bobbie when I met Al. And Al was going to college at SWAC, and he was working at the mill, warehouser. And anyway, that's how I met him. He would come to the school at noon, and we'd go to lunch, and I think I was like 15, or I must have been 15, because he asked me for a date, and I'd never been on a date before. And so he came out to the house and asked Dad if he could take me on a date. And Dad said that was fine, and Dad wanted to know what we were going to do, and Al said we were going to go to the show at the Egyptian in Coos Bay. And Dad said, well, that's fine, but you have to have her home by 11. Well, we went and saw, it was a Betty Davis movie. What was the name of that movie? Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte. It was kind of a weird movie. Anyway, he had me home by 11, but it was really pushing it, because he picked me up at 7. We went to the movie, and then we had to drive back to Lakeside, so we didn't even have time to stop and get a cold drink, or, it was like, we got to the movie, we saw the movie, and I was home. And then he would come out to the house and visit. But a boy had to really like you to come to Lakeside, because it was quite a drive out there. Anyway, then and then Al's family invited me over for dinner, so I got to meet his mom and dad and his sisters, and so. And then Al was going to teach me how to drive a stick shift, because I learned on an automatic. The cars that I drove, they were all automatic transmissions. So he came out to Lakeside, and he wanted me to drive his car into North Bend. He was sitting in the passenger seat giving me instructions, bring it up to this. He had a tack, and he'd say, okay, when you get to that number, shift, and so I was trying to do what he was saying, and I was doing okay, and we came up over the bridge, and as we started down on the other side, he said, okay, now shift down, and I said, but the tack says I'm going too fast. And he says, oh, just shift down. So I shifted down, and I blew the rear end out of his 56 Chevy. So then we had to call Ernie, his dad, and come and tow us up to the house. And then we took Ernie's car, and Al says, I know where there's the rear end. We'll get this rear end, and so I can, They put a new one in the 56. So we get in Ernie's car and we go over to Seaside, or East Side. And way up on the hill, there's a house with a garage. And I think Keith might have been with us, Keith Bowden, which was one of his good friends. Anyway, this fella was working on his car, and the guys said, okay, you stand out here, and if you see anybody coming, you knock on the wall. So I'm hiding in the bushes, and I'm watching. And they stole the rear end out of that fella's car. Took it home, and Ernie and Al put a new rear end in the car. I thought, man, we could have gotten in really big trouble. And I never did that before. So Al's dad, he drove for Olympia Beer Company, and his route was from Drain to Elkton and Bradesport and over to Gardner. Anyway, that whole area was his route. And in fact, his boss's mother gave me that dresser that we use in here in the bedroom. That was her dresser when she was a girl. Oh, I thought that was, and it's over 100 years old. But anyway, we went. I went fishing with Ernie and Al once out of Charleston. We didn't catch any fish. And Ernie's boat was so small, it kind of scared me to be out on the ocean with it. It was more like a ski boat than it was a fishing boat. Ernie's grew up in Salem, Oregon. And his mother was Annie. She was Norwegian. And she was married prior to the fellow she married. Her second marriage was an Elfstrom. But her first marriage, his last name was like Alfonso or something like that. And so when she married Elfstrom, she changed all the names to Elfstroms. They were never adopted, but they went by the last name of Elfstrom to make it easier for school. And so Elfstrom is actually not the kid's last name. It's this other fella's. And so I thought that was kind of interesting that after all these years that they continue to go by Elfstrom.
They think they're Vikings and they're actually Spaniards.
Yeah, I don't know. But I know Ernie said he was Swedish. His heritage was Swedish. So I don't know. Norwegian, Swedish, Al's mother was Ludwigson. Her last name was, I think that was her maiden name. And and that was Spanish. Norwegian and Spanish. So we had our friends, Keith and Norma Bowden. Keith and Al went to school together. And Norma, I think Norma was a year younger than Keith. But they were always together even through high school. And they married after they got out of high school. And we did a lot of things with them. We'd go over to their house and play cards, and we would go up to the sand dunes and go on the sand buggies, and they owned a 3-wheeler that they would ride on the sand dunes. And this one weekend we decided to, we were going to go to the sand dune buggy races, and I don't know if, somebody had picked up a keg of beer. I guess they always had a keg of beer whenever they had sand dune buggy races. But Norma and I was riding around on the 3-wheeler, and she was going to go up this hill, and the 3-wheeler, the front wheel came off of the sand, and I went backwards and fell in a patch of stickers. And anyway, I pulled out as many stickers as I could, but I didn't get all of the little head things that were in my butt. So when I got home, I told Mom, I fell into a patch of stickers. I fell off of the back of a 3-wheeler. And so Mom, she was picking stickers out of my behind, and I don't think she ever, I told her, I'm not sure if she believed that I fell into a patch of stickers. She never said anything, but I often wondered. And our other friends, Gail and Cheryl Bannery. Cheryl's actually named after Cheryl. Cheryl Bannery was a girl that I went to school with, and Gail, I think his dad had something to do with the Olympic beer company, and anyway, we would play games with them and go to the movies. And when I had Cheryl, Cheryl came and stayed with me because I was really sick, and so she came and stayed with me till Mom could come into Salem and help me with Cheryl. But I had gotten an infection, and I was really sick. Then our other friends was Mike and Carol Caruso. And Mike played football with Al. And I remember one time Carol and Mike got married after graduation too. And anyway, they had a house over in Coos Bay, and so we would go over there and visit and play cards. And I don't know if they were celebrating a birthday or what, because we normally didn't drink when we got together, but that night they had sloe gin. Well, I'd never had sloe gin before, and it tastes just like strawberry pop to me. So I had a couple glasses. It tasted so good. Well, I started getting woozy, and Al had to take me home. And of course, when we got there, Mom always waited up for us. And I was trying not to act like I had been drinking. So Al didn't stay very long, and I went to bed. The next morning I woke up and my mouth was just like a cotton ball. And so I went in the kitchen and I got me a big tall glass of cold water, and I started drinking water, and man, I got woozy all over again. I never drank sloe gin again after that. It was, I don't know. Anyway, I just didn't drink it. So, but yeah, I had to sober up. I couldn't wait. I ate something and I felt better, but I never thought it's like drinking cheap wine, you know, you can get drunk on it twice. Well, let's see. I guess that's about all I have written down for today.
Oh, okay.